It's not, it's not.
You ready, guys? Yeah. All right, hey, good morning. Thank you guys for coming in this morning and joining our fourth grade team to just go over our fourth grade curriculum, expectations, and just kind of what to expect this year in fourth grade. I'm Lachey Brenton. I'm one of the homeroom teachers.
I'm Sarah Call.
I'm Mary Lauren Shellac.
Emily Shaw.
And we have lots of support teachers that are also joining us throughout the day. They're in and out. They push into our classrooms. They pull some students out to their classrooms. So we have lots of support coming in and out. As I said, Miss Jordan Gotro, Joanna Wiggins, Bonnie Orr, Amanda Barr, Amanda Varday, and Mr. Petty as well. So
And we also have Miss Roar that comes in
oh yes.
to my classroom and Miss Call's classroom every day also.
Yes.
Yeah.
And here comes some of our
So this is Miss
great
Wiggins.
teachers, support teachers as well.
This is Miss Gotro.
Oh, they just keep on trickling.
This is Miss Barr. This is Miss Orr.
We're glad to have them
It
join
takes
us. We have a great team of support. We all work well together. Everybody pushes in, does their job, and so we are very fortunate to have all these extra hands on board as well.
All right, so we're just gonna briefly go over the schedule this morning. I'm not gonna read every segment, but when students first get to school, they are allowed to get breakfast if they haven't eaten at home, and then they have some time in their homeroom where they can socialize with their friends. They can work on any work they haven't completed yet or morning work. And then at 7:30, the bell rings and we have announcements and a quick morning meeting, and then we have specials first thing in the morning. And then when we get back from specials, students are in their homeroom class for writing and grammar. So the four of us teach our homeroom that, and then we switch classes for block one. And Ms. Shaw and I teach math, and Ms. Branton and Ms. Call teach reading, and Ms. Wiggins is teaching reading at that time. And so so your student might have a homeroom teacher that is different from their block one teacher, and they might, they're with different students during that block. It's a 90-minute block. And then after block one, then we go to recess. Recess is when they get their snack time, because we have lunch pretty late in the day. And so they're allowed to take a snack outside and eat while they're playing. And then after lunch, we have block two. So if they had math first, then they go to reading second, or vice versa. And then we have lunch, and we close out the day with science or social studies. And we alternate between science and social studies at the end of the day.
All right, so just some curriculum information. Some things are the same and should be familiar to you if your child was here last year, such as the HMH math that we started last year. It should look very similar to what they did in their third grade classroom. They have a Spark Your Learning that they start their lessons off with, just to kind of get the lesson started and activate their minds. They also have a mini lesson that they do with their teachers, and then they break up into small groups to do some specific practice, math skill practice with their teachers. They also have an online practice that they had last year as well. It was called Waggle, and they will also have that with the reading. So you may hear your students talking about them flipping between math and reading, and that is linked to our MAP benchmark assessment. So when they take MAP benchmark at the beginning, middle, and end of the year, it syncs so that it's specific to what their learning needs are and the skills that they need. And if there's any gaps that need to be closed, it works on those gaps, closing those gaps from previous grade levels, but it also works on those grade level content standards as well. And then they have a class workbook that they are able to use, and it is a consumable workbook, so they are able to write in that workbook, and they can do that independently. Sometimes they work with the teacher as well to do those. And then HMH reading, very similar. It is our new curriculum for this year for reading. We have lots of great pieces to our reading curriculum this year. We have vocabulary enrichment. Students are introduced to new vocabulary words each week. We have modules that last 3 weeks, and then within that module, they have vocabulary words each week that go with different stories that we're reading. There's a phonics piece where we're working on different phonics skills. Shared reading, where we're doing a lot of reading together as a whole group and working on comprehension, working on vocabulary, enrichment in that piece. And then we also have small groups and literacy centers where students are working independently, whether they're doing Waggle or they're working on phonics pieces or comprehension, or they're working with a teacher. So there's different rotations, and they could even be doing spelling. We have spelling words as well. Each week we have about 10 spelling words each week that we will be introducing to students, and it's working on our phonics skill. It follows the phonics pattern and skills that we're working on. They'll do a pre-test on Mondays and a post-test on Fridays, and they'll be doing that practice throughout the week to work on building that fluency with those phonics words and spelling words.
And because Waggle's available online, that's something that they can access at home also. It's a really good resource for them to work on there. And we can get information about we can send it out via Remind, because there are lots of steps to log in at home. It's different than at school, but we can get that for you.
Yes, so if you are interested in that, please reach out to us and we will get that to y'all.
Okay, so these are our assessments and how we will do grading for our different content areas. So for math, there are daily exit tickets that they will do, the end of module assessments, and then just daily classwork. And then for ELA, we also have end of module assessments for reading. And for writing, they will have a writing prompt that they will answer and write an essay about, and then there will also be a grammar assessment at the end of every module. And since we do writing with our homerooms and reading with our blocks, it'll be broken into 2 different assessments. And then for phonics, those are going to be our weekly spelling tests, so those will usually fall on Fridays, and we give them time throughout the week to practice their spelling words in small group rotations. And then we also have fluency passages and what we're calling proofreading passages that they'll work on also during that small group time. For social studies and science, that will be projects that we do, collaborative activities in class, and then just like our daily classwork. That's what we'll grade for those subjects. So report cards will look a little different this year. They're actually called progress reports now instead of report cards. And they're broken into trimesters. So they will be posted in Infinite Campus 3 times, November, February, and May. Don't know the exact dates, but it will be those 3 times throughout the year. And then for the benchmark assessments, Ms. Branton talked about math a little bit. That was the one that we just took a couple of weeks ago. So that was for reading, ELA, and math, and then we'll take that one again middle of the year and end of the year also. And then DIBELS, we do that throughout the year as well to figure out their needs for reading skills.
And Maze is a comprehension passage that they are timed for 3 minutes, and they read a story, and they see 3 words throughout the story, and they have to choose the best word to make sense in the story and in that sentence. And then ORF is a fluency passage, so they have a 1-minute read of a story, and we look at the correct words that they read in that 1 minute.
And then, of course, we have milestones, and that will be at the end of the year. So they will take, this year they'll just do the ELA and the math sections in 4th grade.
Those are spread out over 4 days, right?
Yes.
Yes, ELA is broken up into 2 days, and math is broken up into 2 days. And as we mentioned earlier, our report card is now called a progress report. So it will look very similar to what you've seen previously in the past, but the grading, academics performance ratings is what's new this year, so we just wanted to touch a little bit on what that would look like. Instead of seeing, the S for satisfactory or seeing a grade, a number grade, you will be seeing these ratings here. You'll see an EX for exceeding, DM for demonstrating, developing, emerging, not yet demonstrating, and then not assessed. So if you see the NA not assessed, that means that we have not tested or taught that, that standard yet. So it will be coming later in the year. So when we have been doing some professional development on this and learning about standards-based grading, we have discussed what this looks like. And for students, when you're at the beginning of the year, obviously you're starting a new school year, you're just being introduced to standards, and most students don't have the mastery at the beginning of the year. So a lot of students are going to be in that demonstrating and developing at the beginning of the year until that they have opportunities to show that they do have that mastery, which is that demonstrating or even exceeding, or I should say it was the emerging and developing, is where you will see them to begin with, and you were wanting to see them progress into that demonstrating or exceeding. Now, exceeding would be showing that they are exceeding above fourth grade standards, and so the work that we're offering them would be something that is beyond what the expectation is in fourth grade. So if you see at the beginning of the year, say on our first progress report, you see emerging or developing, that's nothing to be alarmed about. It's just that we have maybe only introduced that standard one time, or they haven't had a lot of opportunities to show mastery on that. And so they would be an emerging or developing. So the goal is by the end of the year to be at that demonstrating or exceeding.
And if I can just make a quick announcement too, tonight at the PDC, at the district board office, they're having a meeting for parents, and they'll be talking about standards-based grading. It'll be from 5:30 to 7, so if you want further information about why we're making this change and what it will look like, then please feel free to come to that this evening.
Any questions on that? Because I know that's a big change.
Sorry.
So, staying connected, the best way to reach out to us is through Remind messages. And we also send weekly newsletters, and this is, it looks like this, the Wednesday folders that come home. We try to send them every Wednesday, and they're two-sided. It's a keep at home and return to school side. Be on the lookout for those. We also have conferences in the spring and fall. And then we also have school-wide programs and activities that are communicated through that weekly newsletter. So look out for those.
Our next one will be September 21st.
Oh, yeah.
You guys, it will be our back-to-school picnic, and so that's 11 to 1 here out on the playground on September 21st.
All right, supporting your child, having daily conversations about what they're learning, review, study to prepare for assessments. I try to send out remind messages about assessments that are coming up. I actually just sent out one yesterday about today. And sometimes we send out homework and everything, not necessarily homework, but review. Students aren't required to, do homework, but we send stuff home for practice. So they won't get in trouble if they, don't do it, but but, we kind of use it as an incentive just so they could get extra practice. All right. Review the PAWS expectations and Boys Town's lessons. So we have a list of expectations that are called PAWS expectations that the students are supposed to follow every day. And we have Boys Town's lessons, which are something that, as simple as following instructions. How do we follow instructions? How do we accept no? Things like that. We have PBIS, Dojo incentives with 80% or greater on Dojo. I know y'all are familiar with Dojo points. And we also use reflection forms. That's just an opportunity for students to talk with us and reflect on their behavior and come up with goals. If they get, I think it's 2
Well, one is
Oh,
just a
sorry.
warning, and then two, we would contact parents. And
And
then
then
three,
is, yeah, it's a loss of a PBIS reward, and an office referral is for 4.
and that's within, a 2-month window. So we're doing dojo incentive rewards, PBS rewards, every other month. So after that 2 months, it would start over.
Yeah, and always feel free to reach out to us about anything, well, really anything, but especially if you're concerned about reflection forms that you're seeing coming home, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Because we want this year to be successful and fun.
Can I ask why no homework?
What do you-
That's a good
Well, a
question.
lot of parents, just having that understanding and being able to help their child. And I know that a lot of times kids get home and there's that frustration level between the parents and teachers. A lot of kids go home and say, well, that's not how we did it in class. And we also know that families are very busy in the evenings. Speaking just from personal experience, we know that it is a lot for parents that are especially working parents that have to get home, cook dinner, get kids to sports. And so we don't want that extra pressure from that either. And that is why we say, try to encourage your child to read, because reading is going to help them tremendously. If they're reading at home, that you would be surprised how much that extra reading does help your child. And also, while we said waggle is always an opportunity for them to get extra practice as well. It's not a requirement. But also, if they take homework home and they bring it back to school, we technically can't grade it because it's not something that is assisted with a teacher at
So how can we know where our child is academically, at least when it comes to how they're learning? I'm used to my kid having, this is her second year here, gonna be her first full year. And I'm used to seeing how she's completing her work so that I know as her
So on
parent.
those Wednesday folders, we will be sending graded work home. So you
Yeah,
will not
that's-
necessarily see a number grade on there, but you will be able to see, we'll have checks or X's on there. We might make notes on there saying, continue to practice this, or continue to, work on this skill or something like that. But that will be the best way to kind of see their progress from week to week on what they're working on.
And we do have resources available to send
Yes.
home for homework, so if that's
I
something that you
would
would
want
like,
it so that
then
she's held
that's-
accountable for.
Yeah, we can definitely.
I
We
have
have
a middle
several
schooler, and
parents.
it's the same thing. He
Yeah.
doesn't barely bring home homework.
Nothing,
It-
yeah.
But we have parents that reach out and say, and we always provide if there is a parent that is
Okay.
requesting,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Also, any of those assessments that we do in HMH for math or reading, you can,
Oh, yeah.
you should be able to see how they do on those.
Yes.
Login.
And the Waggle program, that is individualized based on their MAP score. So that's a really good tool to use at home because it's specific for what skills your child's working on in both reading
I
and
just try to
math.
keep her off of screen time.
Screen
I'd rather
time.
her be in front of a paper
Yes.
writing.
I was gonna say, reading and writing, if she reads a book and then she writes a response to what she's read, and you can just talk about the characters, how they're changing, what the conflict problems are in the story, the conflicts in the story, and just having communications and even if you're not reading the book, but just listening to her have that conversation about that book, that is huge that's a big thing that we're trying to teach kids, is how to communicate, how to have those classroom discussions and collaborate with each other in the classroom. Same thing with math. You can be going down the road, calling out math facts, multiplication facts, division, any kind of review on those skills will translate over into the classroom. Any other questions? Great questions. Anything else? Well, we really appreciate you guys coming out, taking time out of your day to come and spend a little bit of time with us. If you ever have questions or think of something later on, please feel free to message us. You can also message us individually from your child's teacher, like it doesn't have to be homeroom. On Remind, you should be able to see their Block 1 and Block 2 teachers as well for reading and math. And you can also send us messages through directly to that teacher. So feel free to do that as well.
Oh, I did have one more question, I'm sorry.
No,
Okay.
that's
So
all
for
right.
the ELA, the advanced, content classes, I think it is it a separate class? Is it in the same?
It's still within the same blocks.
Okay.
They're just, you wanna speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, so, I teach, you said ELA, yeah, so I teach the advanced content reading class, and it is, that's block one, so,
Okay.
yes, they go to, it's,
It's-
full class there.
It's kind of why they have a homeroom teacher, but then kind of get mixed a little bit. And that's because, you know, when students go to Miss Call, they would be getting their AC, you know, ELA.
But they're getting opportunities to push them at a little bit faster pace, or even offering them other ways to show exceeding those standards throughout the year, whether it's project-based or just other opportunities that they can show that at an accelerated pace.
And at that time, like, all of the students in the grade are going into different classes, so they're all kind of mixing in
Yeah.
different
Yes.
Okay.
teachers.
And then anything that she's graded for that, will it be on her progress report?
Yes.
Okay, that's my only question.
Thank you. Anything else? All right.